"Hey sweetheart, maybe you should stick to serving coffee instead of trying to play with the big boys' toys." The arrogant man laughed as he watched the petite waitress struggle with the heavy rifle at the shooting range. What he didn't know was that he was mocking the CIA's most lethal sniper, a woman who had 47 confirmed kills across 3 continents. The laughter stopped when she put 5 bullets through the same hole at 800 yards. Meet Elena Rodriguez, 31 years old, full-time waitress at Mickey's Diner in small-town Montana. To everyone in Millbrook, she was just the quiet girl who served the best apple pie and always remembered how you liked your coffee. Polite smile, gentle voice, never caused any trouble. But Elena had a secret that would terrify every person who had ever underestimated her. For 8 years she had been Ghost 7, the CIA's most feared precision eliminator. She had taken impossible shots that other snipers called miracles. She had ended conflicts with single bullets fired from over a mile away. She had saved more lives than any Medal of Honor recipient, and nobody would ever know her name. Growing up in East LA, Elena learned early that survival meant being invisible. Her father abandoned the family when she was 6. Her mother worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. While other kids played video games, Elena was raising her 2 younger brothers and helping her grandmother with English lessons. At 18, with no money for college and no prospects, she walked into an army recruitment office. The recruiter took one look at her, 5 feet 2 inches, 110 pounds, soft-spoken, and suggested she consider support roles. "Maybe logistics or administration," he said dismissively. "Combat roles require a certain physical presence." But Elena had something nobody could see: perfect hand-eye coordination, supernatural focus, and the ability to remain absolutely still for hours. During basic training, while other recruits struggled with marksmanship, Elena was hitting bullseyes that seasoned instructors couldn't match. At the shooting range, drill sergeants would stop their conversations to watch her fire. Other soldiers would gather behind her lane, betting on whether she could hit targets they couldn't even see clearly. Within 6 months, she was recruited by Army Special Operations. Within 2 years, she was approached by a man in a black suit who showed her a badge she'd never seen before. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said quietly, "we understand you can do things with a rifle that most people consider impossible. We'd like to offer you a position where those skills could serve your country in ways that matter." That was the day Elena Rodriguez disappeared and Ghost 7 was born. For 8 years she operated in the shadows. Afghanistan, Syria, Somalia, Colombia, wherever American interests needed protecting, Ghost 7 was there. She took shots that saved hostages, eliminated terrorists before they could execute attacks, and prevented international incidents with precision that seemed supernatural. Her longest confirmed kill, 2,847 yards in the mountains of Afghanistan. Her most difficult shot, eliminating a bomb maker through a 3rd-story window while he held a child as a human shield, without the child even knowing what happened. But the job took its toll. Every mission, every kill, every life saved came with a price. Elena began having nightmares. She stopped sleeping more than 2 hours at a time. She couldn't be around crowds without mapping escape routes and calculating threat assessments. The final mission broke something inside her. A terrorist cell had taken an entire school hostage in eastern Syria. 347 children ages 6 to 16, held at gunpoint while their captors demanded ransom payments from multiple governments. The situation had been ongoing for 72 hours. Children were starting to die from dehydration and stress. Elena was positioned 1,200 yards away on a neighboring rooftop, tasked with eliminating the cell leader through a classroom window during a brief moment when he would be separated from the children. She waited for 14 hours in the same position, her rifle trained on that window, waiting for the perfect moment. When it came, she had less than 2 seconds to take the shot. The bullet traveled for 1.3 seconds before finding its mark. The terrorist leader dropped instantly. The remaining terrorists surrendered within minutes, and all 347 children went home to their families. But Elena saw something through her scope that nobody else witnessed. In the split second before she fired, a little girl, maybe 7 years old, had looked directly at her through the scope. Their eyes met across 1,200 yards of distance. The child smiled and waved, not understanding the violence that was about to unfold. That night, Elena Rodriguez submitted her resignation from the CIA. "I can't do this anymore," she told her handler. "I need to disappear. Completely." The agency arranged for her new identity. Elena Martinez, small-town waitress with a fabricated background in Kansas. They gave her enough money to start over, and most importantly, they gave her their promise that Ghost 7 would remain classified forever. She chose Millbrook, Montana, because it was the opposite of everything she'd known. Population 2,847. One main street. One diner. One shooting range where local hunters and weekend warriors came to sight their rifles for deer season. For 3 years she served coffee and pie, listened to customers complain about weather and politics, and tried to forget that she used to end lives from distances most people couldn't even see clearly. But some skills never fade. On Tuesday afternoon, Elena was working the lunch shift when she overheard a conversation at the corner booth. 3 men in expensive suits, talking quietly about the shipment arriving Thursday, and making sure the border guards are paid off. Drug dealers. She'd heard enough similar conversations in Colombia to recognize the code words. That evening she drove to the shooting range, something she'd never done since arriving in Millbrook. She rented a basic hunting rifle and approached the 100-yard targets, the same distance local hunters used to practice for deer season. That's when she met Brad Hoffman, local real estate developer and weekend gun enthusiast. Brad had noticed the new Waitress around town and decided this was his chance to make an impression. Well, Brad announced loudly, making sure everyone at the range could hear him. Look who decided to play with guns. Hey sweetheart, this isn't like serving coffee. These things have a little kick to them. Elena smiled politely and continued adjusting the rifle scope. Tell you what, Brad continued, encouraged by the chuckles from his buddies, how about I give you some lessons? I've been shooting since I was 12. Won the county competition 3 years running. That's very kind, Elena replied softly, but I think I can manage. Brad laughed and gestured to his friends. Honey, that rifle probably weighs more than you do. Why don't you start with something smaller? Maybe a .22? Work your way up to the big boy toys. Elena loaded a single bullet into the chamber and took her position. Through the scope, she could see Brad's target at 100 yards, a standard bullseye with scoring rings. Tell you what, she said quietly, if I can hit your target better than you, will you leave me alone to practice? Brad grinned widely. Deal. But when you miss, you let me buy you dinner and show you how it's really done. Elena settled into her firing position. Muscle memory took over, the stance she'd held on rooftops in Afghanistan, in forests in Colombia, in desert compounds in Syria. Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat steadied. The world around her went silent. She squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck the exact center of the bullseye, creating a perfect hole through the X-ring. Brad's smile faltered slightly. Lucky shot. Beginner's luck happens sometimes. Try it again. Elena loaded another round. This time she aimed for the same hole her first bullet had created. The second bullet passed through the identical spot, slightly enlarging the hole but not moving it a millimeter. The shooting range had gone completely quiet. Other shooters stopped their practice to watch. One more, Elena said softly, loading a third round. The third bullet followed the exact same path. 3 bullets, 1 hole, perfect center mass. Brad's face was now flushed red with embarrassment and anger. Okay, that's pretty good for 100 yards. But anyone can get lucky at that distance. Let's see you try something challenging. He gestured toward the 500-yard targets that most hunters never bothered with. Hit that and I'll be impressed. Elena walked to the rangemaster's station and requested permission to use the 500-yard range. She also requested their most powerful rifle, a .338 Lapua Magnum typically used for extreme long-range precision shooting. Ma'am, the rangemaster said quietly, that rifle has serious recoil. Are you sure you want to? I'm sure, Elena replied. She carried the heavy rifle to the 500-yard line. By now, everyone at the shooting range had stopped their own practice to watch the Waitress, who was somehow out-shooting their local champion. Elena settled into position behind the rifle. Through the scope, she could see a target the size of a dinner plate 500 yards away. For most shooters, this would be an impossible shot. For Ghost 7, this was a warm-up exercise. She loaded 1 bullet and took aim. The shot echoed across the range. 5 seconds later, they heard the distant ping of metal being struck. Through the spotting scope, the range master confirmed what everyone suspected: perfect center hit. Brad was no longer laughing. His face had gone pale. That's impossible. Nobody shoots like that without years of training. Maybe I've had years of training, Elena said simply, ejecting the spent cartridge. Bullshit, Brad snarled, his embarrassment turning to anger. You're a fucking waitress from some tiny diner. You probably never held a gun before today. Elena stood up slowly, the rifle still in her hands. When she spoke, her voice carried a quiet authority that made everyone at the range step back unconsciously. You're right about one thing. I am a waitress. I serve coffee and pie, and I try to live a quiet life in a quiet town. She paused, looking directly at Brad with eyes that had seen things he couldn't imagine. But before I was a waitress, I was someone else. Someone who could put a bullet through a target the size of a quarter from over a mile away. Someone who spent 8 years making shots that saved lives and ended threats that you'll never read about in the newspapers. The range had gone completely silent. Even the wind seemed to have stopped. So here's what's going to happen, Elena continued, her voice still soft but carrying absolute certainty. You're going to apologize for being disrespectful. You're going to leave me alone to practice in peace. And you're never going to make assumptions about what someone can or can't do based on what job they do to pay their bills. Brad opened his mouth to argue, but something in Elena's eyes stopped him cold. This wasn't the same woman who had been serving him coffee with a polite smile for 3 years. This was someone who had looked through rifle scopes at targets that shot back. I apologize, he mumbled, barely audible. Good, Elena said, returning to her firing position. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some practicing to do. She spent the next hour systematically working through every distance the range offered. 100, 200, 300, 500, and finally 800 yards, the maximum distance available. Every shot was perfect. Every bullet found its mark with mechanical precision that seemed to defy physics. Word spread quickly through Millbrook. By evening, everyone knew that the quiet waitress at Mickey's Diner could outshoot every hunter, police officer, and military veteran in town. But Elena had made a mistake. By revealing her skills so publicly, she had drawn attention to herself. Within 48 hours, a black sedan with government plates was parked outside Mickey's Diner. The man in the suit ordered coffee and pie, then slid a photograph across the table. It showed Elena in military fatigues, holding a rifle on a rooftop in Afghanistan. Ghost 7, he said quietly. We've been looking for you. Elena's hand moved instinctively to the knife she kept hidden in her apron. Old habits died hard. I'm retired, she said simply. We know. But we have a situation that requires your specific skill set. American hostages, impossible shot, deadline approaching fast. Elena looked around the diner, at the farmers having their morning coffee, at the elderly couple who always sat in booth 3, at the teenager working his first job washing dishes in the back. This was her life now. Simple. Peaceful. Normal. But somewhere, Americans were in danger and she was the only person who could save them. One mission, she said finally. Then I disappear again. Permanently. The man nodded. One mission. Then Elena Martinez goes back to serving coffee, and Ghost 7 remains classified forever. That night, Elena looked at herself in the mirror of her small apartment above the diner. Tomorrow she would return to being the CIA's deadliest sniper. But tonight she was still just a waitress in a small Montana town. She packed her few belongings, including the photo she kept hidden in her dresser, the little girl from Syria who had smiled and waved through her rifle scope. The reminder of why she'd walked away from that life. Some people serve coffee and pie because they want a simple life. Some people are capable of impossible things but choose to use their hands for gentle tasks instead of violent ones. Don't judge anyone by the job they do to pay their bills, because sometimes the person refilling your coffee cup has saved more lives than any soldier who ever wore a uniform. The real heroes aren't always the ones getting medals and recognition. Sometimes they're the ones who walk away from glory to find peace in ordinary moments. But when the world needs them most, they're ready to pick up their tools one more time, whether those tools are rifles or coffee pots, whether their battlefield is a foreign rooftop or a small-town diner. Elena Rodriguez served her last cup of coffee at Mickey's Diner at 6 a.m. on a Thursday morning. By 6 p.m., Ghost 7 was on a plane to Eastern Europe, carrying a rifle case and the weight of one final mission. Some people never really retire from who they used to be. They just take longer vacations between the moments when the world needs them to remember. And in Millbrook, Montana, they still talk about the waitress who could outshoot anyone in 3 counties, the woman who proved that deadly skills sometimes come wrapped in the most unexpected packages.